Hi, my name is Liliana Rodriguez, and this is a video about my out-of-box experience. For this particular project for EDCI 2024, teaching in diverse settings, I choose the topic language. Why? Because I believe language is important for us to communicate. We use language when we talk, we use language when we write or read. However, for some students, it's complicated to communicate in English because they are ESL students. Sometimes they don't know how to formulate a questions. They don't know how to refer to a person, or they don't know how to use verbs correctly, and many other things. That was my case when I was 18 years old and I studied English as a second language at LCC. I have to learn English from the ground because my first language was Spanish. And when I keep going with my studies over here in the United States, I have to learn English, as I said before, from the ground. And it was complicated for me to understand and to deal with the stress that does and to deal with the stress that I feel at that moment. That's why I will interview a ESL teacher from Tamayu. Her name is Lola Norris. I want to know how she deal with the stress, how she deal with the students, what methods she used, what techniques, what what tools she uses for teaching English as a second language. And besides, I want to know the similarities and difference between English and Spanish, the grammar rules, and everything else that help me for the future too. Okay, you can start.
Okay, my name is Lola Norris, and I'm Assistant Professor of Spanish and Translation at TAMIU.
Okay, and how you deal with the stress for yourself and the stress with the students?
Do you mean when teaching?
Yes.
I try to make my classes as stress-free as possible. We do a lot of activities, a lot of hands-on activities where the students can participate. And I try to assure them that they can do it, that everybody can learn a language. Sometimes students tell me, oh, I've tried learning Spanish, I cannot learn Spanish, I can never learn it, I've tried it before. And I try to, let them know that everybody can learn a language, and in the classroom should be as stress-free as possible in order for learning to happen. I do get stressed as a professor towards the end of the semester when there's a lot of grading to be done, a lot of preparation to be done, and it's just part of the job. How I de-stress is by walking, by relaxing, by listening to music, but the stress is cannot go away. It's kind of part of the job for me. But I try to make my classroom as stress-free as possible.
Can you mention one activity that you realize or you do with the students?
Right now, I am teaching the beginning Spanish for non-native speakers, and I have a lot of what we call TPR, total physical response activities. And so, for example, when we learn the numbers, it's really boring if you just have a piece of paper and you have to repeat the numbers. So I make them stand up, and I bring a ball to class, and we toss the ball. So whenever they get the ball, they have to say the next number. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I tell them, okay, now we go by twos, 2, 4, 6. Now we go backwards, 10, 8, 6, 4. So we do a lot of activities that require them to actually be physically active by tossing the ball, by tossing it to a classmate and catching them unprepared, and there's a lot of laughter, and there's a lot of it's fun while they're learning, while they're learning something that could be boring and rote. So I like to make them get up and do activities that are that encourage them to move around, to do pair work, to maybe go talk to one of the classmates, ask questions. I do not like for them to be sitting in the classroom all the time. I like them to move. My class is early in the morning, it's at 8 o'clock, and sometimes students just want to come and sit there and not do anything, but I don't let them. I make them get up, move, use the language, use their bodies, use their hands, so that it becomes very interactive.
Can you mention some similarities and difference between English and Spanish language?
I think Spanish and English, being that they're from the same Indo-Germanic root or Indo-European root, have actually a lot of things in common when we compare them to other language pairs, like for example English and Japanese or English and Chinese. They would have less in common. I think the grammar structure, the subject verb object structure is very similar. We have similar patterns, similar way of making a question or a statement. So I try to point out those things in the class. I will say, okay, when you're thinking about asking this question, it's very similar to in English, the way that you would position the words, the way that we do it. And so sometimes I use patterns in English, and then I put them underneath in Spanish so that they can see that they're similar. There's a lot of things that are different. For example, when we ask about the age in English, we say, or when we talk about the age in English, we say, I am 20 years old. But in Spanish, we say, I have 20 years, tengo 20 años. So those things where the structure is different, the verbs are different, I point them out and I show them this is how we say it in English, but this is how we say it in Spanish, so that they can see that there's a difference. And then once I've done that, I go away from English, and we only practice it in Spanish. And again, we try to do it interactive, where they have to go around and ask other classmates, how old are you? How old is your mother? How old is your father? How old is your friend? How old is Mickey Mouse? How old is, I don't know, Brad Pitt? So they have to do a lot of activities where they have to come up with their own questions and their own answers.
Tips for the students to learn a new language outside the classroom?
I always tell the students that everybody can learn a second language, and there's only one secret, and that is practice, practice, practice. The more they use the language, the faster they're going to learn, the better they're going to be. There is a program that we have at TAMIU that is called Mango, that they can access to the library. And it's one of the programs that we use in my class, that the students have to do 10 hours on that program. It's readily available for students at TAMIU to use in the classroom. I think there's also other programs that they can use on the internet, like Duolingo and Life Mocha. There's a couple of others that they can use for free. But again, it's practice, practice, practice. Have a friend, talk to a friend, use Spanish in texting, in writing, in communicating, and just like everything, 10,000 times. If you do it 10,000 times over a period of, of years, you will be good at it. If you don't practice, if you don't put any effort in it, you will not be good at it.
Okay, thank you so much. Any final thoughts?
Um, um, no, just learning a language is beautiful. Everybody should do it. Everybody should be at least bilingual, maybe trilingual.
Because is that language is important for us to communicate, like I said before. It's also important to know or be aware of at least two languages, because that opens more doors for a better future. And I learned that language is unique and also different, because from country to country can change the meaning, um, can also change grammar, can also change how pronounce the word correctly. Um, just like Dr. Lola Nori says, it is important to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice until you get it. But the one question that still remains in my mind is that how long it takes for a student to learn the actual language. I know that um, one can have some difficulties, because when you're trying to speak in English, for example, when you try to speak in English, you are thinking also in Spanish. That's my case. So I would like to know how long it takes for students to learn the actual and correct use of English language in this case. Also, I learned that language can be different, how I say before, from one place to another place. And also, as a future teacher, I get some ideas and some tips of how to improve, or how to improve my ability to communicate with other students, like make a group activity, and not just being sitting on a table and a piece of paper. We need to use media, we need to use computers, we need to use programs, we need to use co-teaching, we need to use everything that is around us, because that will help the students to grow up and feel the need of learn the new language. I believe that learn a new language is difficult for as for a student. So as a future teacher, it's our work to make it easy for them, unless a stress classroom, more hands-on activities, more movement inside the classroom. Just like Dr. Lola Norris says, it's not just a piece of paper and a pencil. You need to be open to other possibilities.